Good afternoon. I hope everybody had a great Easter, right? So I hope you had some food, sat down and ate. Because, I remember like back in the day, family wise, Easter was one of those days, sat down, had a good meal. And remember how everything was at the end and you were like, well, there was still like some scraps left, maybe a couple of pieces of turkey, a little bit of cranberry sauce, whatever, for the Easter dinner, right? So it's almost relative to even when you're dating. So, like, I remember being younger and you see a girl or you see, a woman at whatever particular age, and you say, hey, look, oh my God, I want her, but, nah, she might be a little out of my league, or, she might not be, somebody that's going to choose me or anything like that. And then as life goes on, maybe you see her later, maybe, you run back into her, maybe you're doing better in your life. She's doing however in her life or whatever. And you know what I'm saying? You reconnect. Hey, how you been? Oh, it's good to see you. Such and such and such and such. And then you reconnect, right? And then you start to say to yourself, sometimes after you deal with the person, like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Why wasn't she feeling me 20 years ago? Why wasn't she feeling me 15 years ago? And hey, we all know how it goes. You know what I mean? People want who they want, people like what they like, and all this other kind of stuff, right? But as you get older, you understand that when you're younger, yeah, you take some scraps. You know what I mean? If that's how you want to look at it, you eat some leftovers. You deal with some stuff that might not be something that might come from Prime 112, right? Or Ocean Prime or Del Frisco's. But you know what I'm saying? Because guess what? You still got to get full, right? Because you still have to eat. Because you don't want to be the only one, especially as a guy. You don't want to be the only one not dating and not eating. So you say to yourself, "Hey, listen." But the crazy thing is that at the time, because a lot of times, a lot of us don't know our worth until we get a certain age or, attain a certain amount of stuff. We don't really know really what our worth is, maybe until I would say for a guy, maybe around 35, 40, when he really, hits his stride, right? So you're not looking at it as though it's scraps. But as you get older, and as you'll start to eat at better restaurants. You start to go to better places. You start to go on better trips. You start to see the contrast of what you dealt with and what you would deal with years ago in comparison to what you will now, right? Because back then it was okay. The scraps were okay. Because guess what? You may have only been a scrap, right? You may not have had good credit. You may not have had any money. You may not have had much money, right? You might not even had a car. Even though most of the guys I know and me, we all had cars. But some people, were still on the bus or, telling people they had cars and didn't have them, right? So at a point in time, you may have been scraps. But at this point, and I would say, it really doesn't matter to the most part, as long as you do have, some income and some stuff going on for yourself positively. But don't be a person to settle for the scraps, right? Don't be a person to for yourself because we all know what bar we set for ourselves. Now, of course, my bar isn't, maybe where, somebody else's is. You know what I mean? Like a celebrity or somebody who's a millionaire, somebody who's a multimillionaire, billionaire. Of course, their standards are on probably a super duper level because that's where they're at. But as far as whatever circle you are in, socioeconomic circle you are in, because a lot of times I think things get misconstrued based off of what a person makes or who they rub shoulders with or anything like that. So therefore, there should be less of a standard. Now, if you're a person who, like me, is under 100,000 there, like a lot of people are, especially black men in this country, then that still doesn't mean that you have to deal with people who have a scrap-like behavior mentality, right? So you say to yourself, all right, well, what do you mean by that? Because what happens is that just because somebody isn't making a ton of money doesn't mean that they don't have a ton of moral or a ton of principles, right? Or a ton of good things that they stand on. All right, like taking care of their kids, being present for their kids, looking out for their family, looking out for their loved ones, doing things that Once again, because here's the thing: when you're younger, you're looking for beauty, you're looking for, all these other things. Maybe women, you're looking for more money in a guy or stability or whatever it is, right? But as you get older, you have to start looking at things that mean something, things that aren't as tangible as I usually say, things that people can stand on, like integrity, character, telling the truth for the most part, right? Just being a decent stand-up person, right? And so those are the things, in my estimation, that are no longer scraps. Those are the things that make up a five-course meal, or a meal that consists of a piece of steak that when as soon as you eat it, you're like, oh my God, oh my Lord, where did that come from? Right? You want to be the person also who is that good piece of steak, right? For another person where, yeah, you may not make $100,000 a year, you know, hopefully you may make more than 50,000, but you don't make $100,000 a year. But guess what you offer? Guess what you provide? You provide leadership, especially as a man. You provide leadership. You provide wisdom of living on earth this many years. Because even me, as a guy that's 50, about to be 51, there's no way on earth I should be leading like I'm 31 or 41 or even 45. You have to raise and exceed your level of being top choice meat and not the scraps. Because what happens is that if you still think like the scraps, if you still go after the scraps, then what are you? It's going to make you eventually be scraps, because you're going to wind up in the same kind of boat or the same kind of situation. Like how people always say, if you hang around a certain amount of people, or whatever type of people you hang around, those are the type of people you are, right? You ever hear a woman say before, yeah, well, all of us went out, but Josephine, you know what I'm saying? She's she be smutting around, she be doing such and such and such. And my other girl, Taquisha, she be out and she do the most too. And then how my other girl, if I ain't gonna even say her name, you know how she get it down, right? But you want me to believe you are the wholesome one? You want me to believe that you are the one who's not treating yourself like scraps, right? The same thing goes conversely for guys, right? Everybody wants to be the big dog, until it's time to pull out big dog stuff. Where's your credit at? Where's your money at? Where's this at? Can you pay for this? Can you handle that? Can you do that? So until these things happen, everybody is a big dog, right? And at a certain point, nobody wants to settle for scraps, which you shouldn't. But, you got to put yourself in a mindset of being the best piece of steak that you can be, being the best type of meal. For some of you like lamb chops, I don't eat lamb chops or salmon, but for some of you, that's what you do. So you want to put yourself in being the best cut of those that you can be, and not just the scraps. Because it's funny, when you look at yourself, right? You'll say, I'm this great person. I'm this whatever person, hopefully if your esteem is there. And, but I keep winding up with these type of women, or I keep winding up with these type of men. Well, got news for you, because I've been there before too. Guess what? Basically, what you really are just doing is you're just really dating yourself. Because even if you do think that you're better than somebody else, even if you do think that you're doing better than somebody else, but you keep dealing with people with the mentality that may not be as good as other people, you are still digging in the scraps. You may not visualize yourself as a scrap, right? But what's going on is that it's just like at the dinner table, right? If people have already eaten, you get there a little late, right? Because most times the people who get the actual meals, they're the ones there on time, or they're the ones there that the people have waited for, and then most of those people. And then what happens? The people that come in at the end, right, or that are late, Y'all ain't got no turkey left. Y'all ain't got no mac and cheese left. Dag, same thing for like the cookouts. Y'all ain't got nothing left. Y'all ain't got no burgers left or nothing because they were late. They were late to the party. They didn't understand that. Hey, look, there's only a certain amount of good stuff to go around, right? Being a prime piece of steak, that's not a thing that's infinite, right? There'll always be something to eat, you know. You can always find some scraps somewhere, and guess what? If not, go in there and make yourself a turkey and cheese sandwich, right? So there'll always be something to eat, but it depends on what you want to eat. So how you want to do it? Do you want to eat the scraps, or do you want to eat good? Right? Now we know that we're all not going to eat good, we're not going to be able to eat good every day, right? But the eating good I'm talking about is the mentality, the integrity, the things that you see in people at a certain age that you need to see. By the time you are 40 years old, we should not be putting up, because we all put up with some goofball stuff, because I have too, good God Almighty. But it has to come a point where, we have to stop putting up with the scraps. Where is that, hey, listen, we all like some leftovers now and then, right? It's all good. But listen, for the most part, I'm trying to date people who are the main course meal. So if any of that makes sense to you, hey, leave a comment or whatever. And if not, if it needs to make sense to somebody else, share it, send it to somebody else, let them know, get their feedback on it. Because a lot of us have played both sides of the fence before, right? But, it comes to a point where you got to say to yourself, man, I'm tired of digging for the scraps. I'm tired of coming late. I'm tired of missing the main entree. How did Jay say it? Don't be a waiter, get a meal yourself. But hey, that's just one guy's opinion. But until next time, live life. Don't let life live you.